Hi, welcome everyone to the final live event of Spring Health Professions Week. I'm Mandy now. I'm your Executive Director of Health Professions Week, and I'm thrilled that you're here with us this evening. We do have a big group tonight. It's going to take a few minutes to get everybody to join. This meeting is being recorded, so I do want to remind you that while you are muted and we cannot hear you, your video, you do have the capability of turning your video on, and so we can see you, but you will not be a part of the recording, so you don't have to worry about that. We have a really special presentation tonight. Again, it's being recorded. It'll be on YouTube tomorrow. So if you can't be with us the entire time, don't worry about it. You'll be able to find a copy of it tomorrow. If you have questions, you can go ahead and drop those into the question and answer chat, and I'll actually get that started here in just a couple of minutes. Tonight, I am really excited to have our partners from the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy with us tonight to discuss careers in pharmacy and the wide variety of things that they do. Your moderator tonight is Danielle Stubbs. She's the Associate Director of Student Recruitment and Diversity, and she will be moderating the discussion tonight, taking your questions. So I am thrilled to have you here, Danielle. I'm going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mandy, for that introduction. So I just wanted to say hello and welcome to the live panel, Careers in Pharmacy. As Mandy mentioned, my name is Danielle Stubbs, and I work with the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy. Today, we have a really great panel planned for you all today with pharmacists from a variety of settings, and I'm really excited to have them share their experiences with you. Before we get started with the panel, I did want to take a moment to plug a few resources as you continue exploring careers in pharmacy. So as you can probably see on your screen, there are a couple of things I would encourage you to check out after this panel today. The first one is the Pharm.D monthly newsletter. This is a brand new newsletter that goes out just once a month, straight to your inbox, so it's not too much. It includes lots of great information like scholarship opportunities, information on novel careers in pharmacy, application tips, personal stories from pharmacists who have been where you are right now, and so much more. And so I would encourage you to scan that QR code and sign up for that newsletter. Again, it just goes to you once per month. We also have a really great and informative website, pharmacyforme.org, and we are at Pharm.Me on all social media platforms. So if you want to know where to go on all things pharmacy, if you want to learn about the opportunities available, how to apply, how you can pay for a pharmacy school, these are all great resources to check out. Lastly, if you are a Tallo user, we do have a digital attendance badge. So if you're not a Tallo user, just ignore that. But if you are, definitely request that badge after this meeting so that you can show off this great event to other folks on the platform. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have our panelists introduce themselves, and I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen in a second here. We'll just kind of go in the order that you'll see your picture on the slide here. So Dr. Richardson, I'm going to hand it over to you. If you just want to introduce who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for having me a part of the panel this evening. I'm happy to talk to all of you. My name is Renee Richardson. I am from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, born and raised, still here. I graduated in 2009 from Duquesne University School of Pharmacy, where my program was a 0 to 6 program. So I started there undergrad and went into the pharmacy school after my second year. During pharmacy school, I was involved in a lot of different organizations within and outside of pharmacy. Outside, I was involved in the Black Student Union, and within pharmacy school, I was involved in the National Pharmaceutical Association. Well, it was the Student National Pharmaceutical Association very heavily. I was in Lambda Kappa Sigma, which is a pharmacy sorority. I was in an organization called HEART, which focused on people that wanted to support addiction, rehabilitation, and support people that were going through that, and a number of other organizations. So I still stayed really involved and had some leadership roles, and enjoyed my time in pharmacy school. And I chose pharmacy because a friend of mine their mother would always talk to us about pharmacy school and what a great opportunity it was. I always loved the healthcare field, and looked into pharmacy and said, well, there's a lot of different opportunities. I was really interested in teaching, and you definitely have that opportunity within pharmacy school. Once you become a pharmacist as well, and you can really help to make a difference in the lives of your patients. So I decided that this was the right career path for me. So I'm happy to share more as we go on through the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Regini Bhakta, and I am hailing to you from Henderson, Nevada, which is right next to Las Vegas, Nevada. So I teach in a college of pharmacy that's here, and I also work in a hospital with cardiologists. So something that I didn't really realize pharmacists could do when I started pharmacy school, but then, kind of said yes to multiple opportunities, and here we are. And Dr. Richardson, I was in Lambda Kappa Sigma too when I was a student. So good to meet a fellow LKS person. And I'm also looking forward to kind of sharing a little bit about my journey and hoping that you make a well-informed decision.
Thank you, Dr. Bhakta.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. I'm actually colleagues with Dr. Bhakta, so it's nice to be on the same meeting together. So my name is Susan Nguyen. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, originally, where I did my undergraduate pharmacy school and my residency training. So I spent a lot of time at Ohio State and still paying the student loans off, kind of thing. And after that, I went to move here to Henderson, Nevada to teach at the university here. And so my area of specialty is ambulatory care. For those that are not so familiar with that, it's basically working with patients in a clinic setting. A lot of the patients that I see are patients that are underserved, patients that don't have access to insurance or medical care. And so those are the patients that we're typically seeing. And I get to work with a great interprofessional team with doctors and nurses and other members of the healthcare team to care for these patients. So looking forward to sharing my journey as well. And feel free to ask any questions that you guys have.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yett. I am a pharmacist, much like my fellow colleagues on the call today. I am from Beaumont, Texas originally. So for those of y'all who are unfamiliar with the massive state of Texas, it is kind of in the very southeast corner of Texas, about 30 minutes away from the Louisiana border and an hour and a half east of Houston. So we're kind of right in the corner there. I went to pharmacy school in San Antonio. So that was kind of a move to a big city for me. And then I moved away from Texas for residency training, and I'm now back in Texas as a faculty member at the University of Texas at Tyler. And I kind of fall in between all of my different colleagues here. So I did training in community pharmacy. I work with cardiology patients in an ambulatory care setting. So I think as we all speak, you'll get to hear a little bit about what all of those mean to us. But I'm excited to be here with y'all tonight. So thank you.
Thank you all for this introduction. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you weren't able to grab these resources, please don't worry. The recording and everything will be available afterwards. Like I said, you can always go to pharmacyforme.org to get access to all the free pharmacy resources. And we're going to jump into some of these questions. So my first question for you is, and you might have answered that a little bit in your introduction, but what really got you excited about pharmacy? Why was that the choice that you made as opposed to any other number of healthcare careers?
I can answer first. Awkward pause, right? So kind of my journey started off with really my parents. They immigrated to the US in the 80s after the Vietnam War. And being the first generation student, I really had to attend medical visits with my parents and kind of be the interpreter for them in regards to those visits, right? So got a lot of learning that I did in regards to medications, disease states when I was younger, because I didn't know what they were talking about and I had to look it up, right? And so through that experience, and then also getting to really know the pharmacist that was really at our community pharmacy, and getting really to know that person, and they really influenced me to go into this pharmacy career. And the reason why I picked pharmacy over other health professionals is I think that I really enjoyed learning about the medications, how each of these medications work in the body, and how we as pharmacists, we might know that there are tons of blood pressure medications out there, but we get to be the experts of knowing which blood pressure medication works for the best in each of our patients, right? So knowing that level of detail about medications is what we contribute to the medical team.
So for myself, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I always find that there's usually two paths to becoming a pharmacist. Either you know someone that's a pharmacist or someone actually talks to you about it. It's not really one of those things that a lot of people grow up and say, oh, I want to be a pharmacist, because you don't really interact with them a whole lot. And I think pharmacists are so accessible that you can walk up to the pharmacy counter in a grocery store. So you don't really think that there's so much into being a pharmacist when there really is. They are really experts in what we're doing, and in the healthcare field, and well respected. So my path was someone introduced pharmacy to me. I saw all the different opportunities, and truly, like, the four of us on this call can give you all of our experiences, but that is just a little tiny piece of what you can become as a pharmacist. And I think that is an attractive piece for me. You can really change your career path. You can do a lot of different things. If you don't want that direct patient care, you don't have to have that direct patient care. If you want to do the insurance end, if you want to work in a doctor's office. So there's so many different things you can do in pharmacy. And I think I really love that, and it attracted me. And my program was 6 years. So within 6 years, you're a doctor. And I think that that's also really awesome that you're a doctor, but you're not going through like 10, 15 years of school like you would see a physician, but you have many of those opportunities to affect people's care.
I also fall within the camp of somebody introduced the profession to me or said, oh, you like chemistry? Maybe you would like pharmacy. You know, I did not work in a pharmacy before applying to pharmacy school. So I'm sure some would say a bit naive, but there's still a lot of students who are in pharmacy school that maybe have not ever worked in a pharmacy. So I think if you're the type of person who likes your work day to vary from day to day, if you are a learner, like you really enjoy learning new things and remembering those things, then the profession of pharmacy could definitely be a good fit for you. I also tend to be most comfortable a little bit behind the scenes, despite this. So I felt like when I was looking at different healthcare providers, pharmacy was a little bit behind the scenes, and I was like, oh, I'm really good at behind the scenes kind of stuff. So that really resonated with me, and why I ended up going to, attended the University of the Pacific, which is in a town in Northern California.
And I think I'm about to echo a lot of what my colleagues have said, but I had family friends and my mom saying, Elizabeth, you know, I feel like you would make a great pharmacist. I'm like, okay, sounds good. You know, we always listen to our moms, right? So I went to pharmacy school thinking I was going to open my own pharmacy one day, because that's what I thought pharmacists did. Like, you opened a pharmacy, you ran your pharmacy for the rest of your life. And it's kind of ironic because I do nothing similar to that now, but I love it. And I feel like that's a lot of people's impression of pharmacy, is those pharmacists you see in your community. And so that's what kind of like what Dr. Richardson mentioned. We're so visible in the community that people don't always think that there are other avenues, or there are more behind the scene areas of pharmacy that Dr. Bhakta mentioned. So there's so many differences in what you can do. And so the fact that I could, you know, do 2 years of prerequisites in undergrad and then go straight to pharmacy school. So I don't have an undergraduate degree, but got to do what I wanted to do much quicker, I think, than maybe some of the other health professions. It was a great thing for me and a highlight for me. So I felt felt good about that choice pretty much as soon as I made it. So I'm excited to be where I am today within this field. It's wonderful.
I just wanted to emphasize that little fun fact is that for most pharmacy programs, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. A lot of them want you to have like a minimum number of credit hours, your prerequisites, and then you can go straight in. So that's another nice plus that you don't have to do a ton of schooling like Dr. Richardson mentioned. But on the note of all of the different opportunities that are available, I was wondering if you all could tell us a little bit about what specialty or what setting you work in and what makes it unique from the others.
I can get us started. So I am joining you from my office here at the hospital. So I work in I don't know if any of you are familiar with Common Spirit Health or Dignity Health, but I work in a hospital that's affiliated with that company. So my day-to-day varies, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, but people come to the hospital for many different reasons, infections, high blood sugars, heart attacks, all kinds of things. But a lot of them tend to have heart problems. So cardiologists tend to get involved in the care of a lot of different people in the hospital. So I spend most of my day at the hospital kind of talking to the cardiologists and looking over the medications that patients are on in the hospital. I pay more attention to things like doses, or if there's two medications that seem like they're doing the same thing, or there might be something called a drug interaction. So the cardiologist is looking at like diagnosing what's wrong with them. And I'm kind of looking at, could any of the medications be causing some of these issues? Are any of the medications, could we change it up to help this person? And then I communicate that either in writing or just talking to the cardiologist, what my thoughts might be. That also involves looking up a lot of clinical trial information. So there's a lot of new studies out related to heart-related or cardiac problems. So I get to learn every day and I get to communicate that stuff every day. And then the gravy on top is kind of helping to improve a patient's care while they're in the hospital. And then hopefully when they leave the hospital as well. So that's a little bit of my day at the hospital. And as I mentioned, I also teach at the College of Pharmacy here in Henderson, Nevada. And so I also spend some of my days on campus interacting with students, teaching them about different cardiology topics and helping them practice, real world pharmacy stuff in a simulated setting.
I'll follow up because as soon as those patients leave Dr. Bhakta in the hospital in the cardiology floor, I'll see them in the cardiology clinic. So similar to her, I'll see patients with blood pressure problems or patients that just had a heart attack and need to be managed. Now we need to keep better eyes on them moving forward. So hopefully we can prevent them from having another heart attack. So similar to how Dr. Bhakta will work with the physicians in the hospital setting, I'll work with them in their clinic setting. So imagine you went to an appointment with your primary care doctor, or your parents or someone in your family goes to see a heart doctor, a cardiologist. So just like they would have an appointment with their physician, they would have an appointment with me as the pharmacist to do exactly what Dr. Bhakta does, but to keep them out of the hospital, essentially. So we kind of make our lives easier for each other by providing care and education and collaboration with our patients in inpatient and outpatient settings. So similar to Dr. Bhakta, I'll then use what I've learned from interacting with patients in clinic to then go and teach my students in the classroom with real world experiences, real life interactions with patients to help prepare them for what they will do as they begin to start experiencing pharmacy practice in that setting. And then just a little tiny side note that I am also the assistant dean of admissions here at our college. So then I get to go out and speak to students about my experiences as pharmacists, so similar to what I'm getting to do tonight. So those are kind of my different areas of specialty in pharmacy, in that I'm outpatient pharmacist. So I don't work in a pharmacy, but work in a clinic setting with the patients and with the cardiologist directly. And then also get to recruit future students to maybe do similar things as their pharmacists as well.
So I work in a similar setting like Dr. Yet, but more focused on broader chronic diseases such as like diabetes, patients that might have thyroid problems, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things of that nature. And so my practice setting is a different setting, the fact that I work with underserved patients. And so a lot of the patients that we see don't have access to medical insurance, wouldn't really receive care if our clinic wasn't around. So what I get to do every day is spend time in reviewing the patient's medications with them, making sure that they understand why they're taking the medications they're taking, but also why we're doing blood sugar monitoring, what their blood pressure goals are, things like that. And I think of myself as like a cheerleader for the patient, right? Because the thing is that our goal is to keep these patients out of the hospital. And the goal is that I'm not there with them every step of the day, every moment of the day, right? So I want to teach them and be able to give them the information so they can care for their own medical problems, right? And then similar to the other two faculty is that I'm also teach at the university too. So our program at Roseman is a 3-year accelerated Pharm.D program. So after completing 2 years of prerequisites, the students can do your doctorate degree in 3 years. And so in their 3rd year, we take students on our rotation so they can see all of the different areas in pharmacy that have opportunities for jobs in the future. So I definitely get to enjoy my time spending time with the students and educating them about the role and the impact of a pharmacist in that kind of setting.
So after you see all of the other pharmacists and you leave their settings, you come to the community pharmacy. So I've been at Giant Eagle Pharmacy for my entire pharmacy career. It is a grocery store chain pharmacy. My role currently is a very non-traditional pharmacy role, but I did start out in the stores. So to answer one of the questions that was in the chat, I did complete a residency upon graduation from pharmacy school. I did a PGY1 community practice residency. It was with Giant Eagle, Duquesne, and Pfizer. You do not have to complete a residency whenever you graduate from pharmacy school. It's really up to you. One of the things I like to say is I think it opens up opportunities for you that you may not have immediately upon graduation, but that doesn't mean you can never get to those opportunities. It just may take you a little bit longer. Also, I had an interest in going into teaching one day, which I do teaching within my practice setting. I don't teach traditionally at a university, but if you do have aspirations to do that teaching, usually they do require a residency or a fellowship. So that would be one reason you would take that path. But upon completing my residency, I did stay on with Giant Eagle. I did dispensing. So just like if you go to a Rite Aid, a Walgreens, a CVS, or any other community pharmacy, that's the pharmacist that I was. I also did a lot of clinical practice within my setting, diabetes, self-management education, immunizations, which is very common for pharmacists to administer now. Medication therapy management or comprehensive medication reviews, where you sit down with the patients, go through their medications, make sure they understand what they're taking, why they're taking it, see if there are any of those interactions that aren't caught from the physician or any of the other pharmacists that see them, which I wouldn't suspect any other pharmacist would miss an interaction. But we also do that double check upon leaving the pharmacy. And I held a number of different roles after that, which was in the corporate setting. So right now I do work in the corporate setting and I lead our inclusion, equity, and diversity strategy. And I work with community partners on that strategy. So making sure that we are bringing services from the pharmacy out into the community, especially to those underserved populations that was mentioned earlier. So we want to make sure that we help to affect positive change in that area. And then I also work with my customers, which is our team members, to make sure that they are getting, they're in an inclusive environment, that they're getting the resources that they need to be able to serve their patients. And then also making sure that we have the right policies and procedures in place in order to serve our patients so that they feel like they can come and be themselves at our pharmacy. So it's very different than what you may see a pharmacist do, but that just speaks to what I mentioned earlier. There's so many things that you can do in pharmacy And this is just one of those. And having that expertise as a pharmacist, I am able to, put that hat on when I'm thinking of services and programs that we can put in place for our patients, but also for our team members.
So I've been looking at the chat. We're getting lots of great questions in. And the questions that we seem to be getting a lot of is more about your undergraduate preparation as you were getting ready to apply to pharmacy school. So if you all could tell us a little bit more about what you majored in, how difficult did you find your prerequisites? Did you ever fail any of your classes? If you did find a class difficult, how did you overcome that and stay committed to this path?
So my program was a 0 to 6 program, which with that program, whenever you are, it was a 6-year program. So whenever I was accepted into the major of pharmacy as an undergraduate, upon applying to college, as long as I maintained a certain GPA, I would automatically be admitted into the pharmacy school. So I did not have another major upon pharmacy school. I would say like the first 2 years, of course, it's absolutely challenging. One of the best pieces of advice that I got was try to keep your Fridays and Saturdays for yourself. So if I didn't have an exam on Monday, I still tried to make sure that I had a good time and I enjoyed my college years. But there will be those times that your friends are out partying maybe, and you may not be able to do the same things at that time. But I think it's very manageable. I did not fail any classes, but I was used to being a straight A student in high school. And I think coming into pharmacy school, I had to get comfortable with not being a straight A student, that things didn't always come so naturally. You did have to work a little extra, but there's a lot of resources out there to help make sure that you're successful in your classes.
So I did my training at Ohio State where a bachelor's degree is required to go into pharmacy school. So some schools do require that. So I got my bachelor's degree in pharmaceutical sciences, which a lot of students get that degree to go on to health professional careers, And so regardless of wherever you want to go to school, in pharmacy school, I'd make sure that you're looking at the requirements because each program is going to have similar things that are required, like OChem, things like that, right? But some programs might require speech, some programs require anatomy and physiology, right? So it's important to kind of get those main classes, but then also look at the programs you're applying to make sure that you're meeting the requirements there. And I've sat on the admissions committee in the past and definitely know that, a lot of things with students is that we're trying to look at it holistically more. We know that students also are caregivers. We know that students also have jobs and also are involved in many other things outside of being at school, right? So I think that it's important that it's not all just about your grades. It's also about what you're doing in the community, the type of leadership roles that you have, what other kind of healthcare experience that you have, whether you're a scribe or you volunteer, things of that nature. So I want you to know that it's very holistic nowadays in regards to looking at admissions applications. So if something did happen where you didn't get the grade that you wanted and you wanted to retake it, that's great. But also it's important when you apply to pharmacy school in your admissions, essays to kind of really describe what happened and give us a reason why that happened and kind of what has changed since then that would allow you to succeed in pharmacy school. So those are important things I would also have you think about as well.
This might seem obvious, but if it's early on when you're taking a course, a lot of life is about timing. Sometimes the timing just isn't right. If you're struggling at the beginning of a course, even if it's required, drop it like a hot potato and take it when it's a better time, no shame in dropping it before you get that grade. So that's one option. There are also pharmacy schools that offer academic forgiveness, which I think Dr. Nguyen was kind of referring to, and they'll allow you to take the same course or an equivalent course at a different college, to try to up the grade. And so talking to the admissions department at the various colleges of pharmacy would be another resource to try to help you have the strongest application for pharmacy school. And then I put it in the chat, but I got a degree in chemistry. And so, yeah, ups and downs. I think everyone probably struggles with OChem, and I was no different in that way. So use your tutors.
Yeah, just to kind of add to that, I think my colleagues have mentioned some really good ideas for how to get engaged and kind of how to make your application maybe stand out as a student. And so I think another important aspect of that is probably to make sure that you find some sort of mentor for yourself. So that could be a faculty member that you feel like you really like their subject and they taught really well, and you just kind of feel this connection with them. That could be the advisor of an organization that you're a part of. It could be someone that you work with or work for. Those are all great potential people that could serve as an unofficial mentor or an official mentor. So they don't have to know that they're your mentor, but if you want them to be, serve in any sort of specific capacity, you could always ask them, like, will you mentor me through the process of applying to pharmacy school and preparing for applying to pharmacy school? So that being said, I think it's important to get involved in some way, in some shape or form at whatever school you're at right now. So if you're, doing really well in school, you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge, maybe you serve as a tutor for certain courses or as a peer mentor to students who will take that course the year after you may have taken it. You could be a student ambassador for your campus, get to know other students, and maybe interact with some pharmacy students and pharmacy faculty if you have that school on your university campus. There's a lot of different ways to get involved, and some of those ways might put you in situations where you'll get to interact with other students who are searching for these same kind of answers. So is pharmacy right for me? Am I being successful? Will I be a great candidate for pharmacy school? And so y'all can kind of build those connections and those relationships and, start that interprofessional communication and intra-professional, so both with other people seeking other healthcare fields and for other people seeking pharmacy. So y'all can really help each other, I think, along that path as well.
On that note, April is actually National Interprofessional Healthcare Month. So a good time to celebrate all of the great collaborative relationships that you'll build in the field. One great question that we got in the chat is, we have a student who is maybe considering med school, but also considering pharmacy. And they want to know what is one thing or some things in pharmacy that pharmacy offers that perhaps medical school does not.
That's a great question. I'm going to answer it by kind of answering it and then adding something else. So something that I like to tell my students, I mentioned I work in admissions as well, and this is a new role for me. So I'm kind of learning how to answer these questions. So what I tell students, because often I'll have pre-medical students come and chat with me and they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. They don't say it, but I know that they don't want to talk to me. I'm pre-medical, I'm not interested in pharmacy. And so I'm like, okay, well, like what field of medicine are you interested in? So, they'll say emergency medicine or pediatrics or cardiology. And so where I come in is I say, all of those fields that you just mentioned, you can specialize in as a pharmacist as well. And so I feel like that's something really unique about our profession, is that we have, I think, over 100 different career paths. And then within those different career paths, specialties that you can have and that you can be trained in. And so I know Dr. Richardson in the beginning mentioned kind of the flexibility of a career in pharmacy. So if I decided one day that I don't like to teach anymore and I don't want to be in the setting, I can go and work full time in the clinic that I practice in, or I can go practice in a community pharmacy since I was trained in that originally, and help provide patient care services or ramp up services they're already doing. So I think the flexibility of the profession is really astounding. So if I decide, I want to pursue cardiology as my field, but then I could still provide care for any other patient taking medications because I still have all of that other information in my brain. So I love that. Like, I don't have to decide I'm a cardiology pharmacist forever and I never want to do anything else. Whereas if you're a cardiologist, you're pretty much stuck in that. Like, you can't just transfer your skills to another disease state. But I feel like as pharmacists, we are well-rounded in our education, that we can pivot depending on our family situation or where we need to move to or something like that. So that's one of my favorite things about pharmacy, and I think makes us stand out among professions.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple other areas of pharmacy that are maybe less well known. So I think someone mentioned earlier working for some of the insurance companies and approving medications that are maybe very expensive, or deciding what medications an insurance company is going to cover. That's something that's unique. Also, if people are really into IT, there's pharmacists that are informatics pharmacists, right? So they designed the different programs that we use in the hospital or clinic setting that we document medications and patient records, things of that nature. There's pharmacists that like to do research, right? So there's pharmacists working in FDA and clinical trials, being involved in helping to decide, is this medication going to be, potentially approved by the FDA, but also in the testing of these medications as well, right? So like everyone is saying, there's such a great way to pivot. I really liked what Dr. Yet said, is really pivoting and not being stuck in somewhere. So the people that I've graduated with, if I think about, I've been a pharmacist for 10 years now, some of the people that had whatever they had their job as at the beginning of the career, a lot of them have moved on to their second or third job because they found something new, found something that they loved. And being able to have that flexibility has been amazing. I know a lot of people also have family and kids. So being able to work a job where you're working 9 to 5 and you get to go home and spend time with your family, that's also a great thing. And not having to worry about, for example, being a medical provider and having a lot of the things that are required of medical providers outside of work. So those are other things to kind of consider in the pharmacy career.
Thank you so much. Another great question here. So we have someone who is considering both clinical pharmacy, but also pharmaceutical research. And so they want to know, how much room is there for research with a Pharm.D degree?
I would say there are many different opportunities. So after pharmacy school, there is an experience that newly graduated pharmacy students can participate in called a fellowship. And that is basically experience in either working for a drug company or working for a government agency or a regulatory body that regulatory meaning the laws and stuff that regulate how new medications are approved. So that is one opportunity within research. If you are thinking about research like being in a lab and creating or identifying molecules that might target, let's say, a certain type of cancer, in my experience, that might fit a little bit better with a PhD. Because you need to know how to use that kind of lab equipment and how to identify chemical compounds. And I can't say that the pharmacy school I attended or that I teach in trains students to do that. So you probably need to kind of narrow it down to what type of research you're interested in. But if you're interested in like the clinical trials that are done in order to approve a new medication, or once a medication is approved, finding a new use for that medication, then people who have a Pharm.D can be involved in those types of research areas.
Yeah, and I can add to that as well. There, even as a student, there are opportunities to participate in research as you're going through your pharmacy schooling. With your professors, usually at the universities, they all have some sort of research requirement to uphold. So you can get involved in that way, and even like within the labs. In community pharmacy, which is where I have a lot of my experience, we do research all of the time. We partner with universities, we partner with students that want to do research, and we do a lot of that real world kind of aftermarket research that Dr. Bhakta mentioned. You don't necessarily, it's not even necessarily drug related. It could be like, what are your perceptions of pharmacists administering an immunizations? It could be survey type research as well. So I think there's a lot of different opportunities aside from completing a PhD, but as mentioned, you might just want to think about exactly what does that look like for you, and your professors or your mentor within pharmacy school can help guide you in the right path.
And Just wanted to plug one quick resource. There are also dual degree programs, so Pharm.D, PhD programs that you can look into if you kind of want to hit both of those areas. And I put the link in the chat for that page on our website for more information. I got another really great question about if you have a recommendation for a specialty for someone who does really want to work more in the lab or maybe less with people. What are some specialties that you all know of that you might recommend this person to look into?
I think maybe one specialty that hasn't been mentioned is nuclear pharmacy. So there's also pharmacists who work in the medications are called radiopharmaceuticals, but basically if you think about any kind of an imaging test that someone needs to get, then usually there's a medication they get in order for the physician to see what's going on inside the body. So there are, that's the first one that came to my mind, but there are others where you're kind of just as a pharmacist working with the compound and maybe the people you work with. And then there's like a delivery service that takes the radiopharmaceuticals to all the different hospitals or sites that are going to use that. There are also mail order pharmacies, so if you think about if somebody needs a refill nowadays, it's automated and they request their refill, and there's like this huge warehouse kind of building with conveyor belts, and the pharmacists that work in those types of settings primarily focus on making sure that the right medication ends up with the right label for the right patient and gets to the correct destination.
Thank you. There was one question that Dr. Yet answered in the chat about general advice or insights on the PCAT, and I just wanted to point that one out because it's such a good piece of information if you're thinking about, especially if you're thinking about med school versus pharmacy school. Pharmacy school, you won't have to worry about the PCAT anymore starting in 2024. It is being kind of phased out. There are some programs that might still require other entrance exams like the GRE or even the SATs or something like that, but you can always check the PharmCast directory to see exactly what kind of entrance exams are still required. But at least for the PCAT, most of you won't have to worry about that one anymore. So thank you, Dr. Yap, for answering that in the chat. The next question, and some of you kind of talked about this, but I'm not sure if this person caught that response, and I wanted to kind of come back to that. But what extracurriculars, jobs, or internships did you do in undergraduate to prepare yourself for pharmacy?
So I was a pharmacy technician before I went to pharmacy school, essentially. So I think that, it's not essential that you have to work in the field of pharmacy before you become a pharmacist, but I want you to think about how pharmacy school is a huge time commitment. It's a huge financial commitment, right? And it's going to be life-changing, right? So, and it's potentially where you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, right? So I think that it's important if you don't work in those settings, it's okay, but maybe finding another pharmacist in an area that you might be interested in and just shadowing them, just talking to them, and really making sure that this is the career for you, right? And so I see that as advice for anyone who's going into the health professions careers, just really getting some opportunity to shadow, right? So in addition to basically working at a community pharmacy as a technician, I was able to shadow pharmacists in the hospital and different clinic settings. So I felt like I got a bigger understanding of what pharmacists were able to do before I even jumped into the world of pharmacy. But just really reaching out to people that you might know, or just even reaching out to your local college of pharmacy. Is there faculty that would be willing to sit and talk to me about different career fields? I think those are important things to consider.
Yeah, I mentioned that most of my career has been with Giant Eagle Pharmacy, and so has my internships. So starting in undergraduate, I did start as a pharmacy technician at Giant Eagle Pharmacy, and I remained there with my internship. But also within my School of Pharmacy, they had a Center for Pharmacy Care, which they still have, and they did a lot of point of care testing where we went out into communities and also for our students and faculty would provide point of care testing. So that would be tests that you can give like right on the spot for cholesterol, A1C, bone density. So we would do those types of tests in the community and at the School of Pharmacy, and then counsel patients on their results and refer them out to different healthcare providers if needed. So I think that kind of sparked my love for clinical pharmacy and wanting to be a little more hands-on with patients and find those connections between their disease states and their medication. So not just simply looking at the medication, but looking at the disease state and also counseling on different lifestyle changes that they could make in order to prevent any disease progression or be officially diagnosed with something. So that was a little bit of a different experience that I had outside of community pharmacy, which I'm now able to carry into my career as we get more hands-on and more involved with patient care in my practice setting today.
And just to kind of add to that, so of course, all of the healthcare related experiences or science related experiences you can get will probably prepare you very well for pharmacy school. But also I want to encourage y'all like not to lose sight of who you are as a person outside of your profession, right? So if you enjoy sports, maybe you continue playing as, you know, a football player, and then you also coach football for younger kids, or you like animals and so you serve as a dog. I keep saying serve. You volunteer as a foster for dogs. So I think in addition to, you know, focusing on that area of your future that you're excited about, don't forget that like you're more than just that as well. So, you know, don't give up all those other hobbies non-related to healthcare and all those other volunteer experiences you can do in your community to serve in other ways besides just being a future pharmacist.
And I totally agree with that. And I'm going to kind of like pivot to another question that somebody had in the chat. And maybe Dr. Yet, with your current role, you can also add to that, because I don't do interviews for students that are getting into pharmacy school, but I know that there was a question on how you can stand out and prepare for your interview. And I mean, one thing just for me, even as a employer, when we're interviewing someone, I'd really like to see a well-rounded person. Like, come be yourself. Let us know what else you're involved in, what else you're passionate about, what else you're committed to, because I think that's also going to lean into what you're going to do in pharmacy school and how you're going to act as a student. So I think that that's very important to be involved in a lot of other things now and talk about how you're a leader in certain areas, or how you just get involved, how you get involved in community. Because really, whatever area of pharmacy that you're in, it's about serving and caring for patients, and you're going to do that in many different ways. So we really want to see your whole self.
Yeah, so like Dr. Richardson mentioned, like if you haven't, if all you do is, you know, do your best studying and getting your good grades, and that's who you are as a person, you can't really tell a lot of stories about that, right? So an interview is a chance for you to talk about yourself, for you to shine. And so everything that you do outside of studying and performing well in school is you. That's part of your story. And so that's what we tell our students when we interview them. Obviously, you're going to be very nervous. It's kind of an intimidating situation. You want to do your best. So to do your best, you're kind of preparing for that in everything that you do as a student. So if you have a difficult interaction with someone in a work environment, that's a story. So how did you work through that situation? How did you come out of it? And what did you learn that you can then utilize for a future situation? Because you will have conflict as a healthcare provider. So tell me about a time that you experienced conflict and what you learned from it. So I tell my students, jot down little notes, like if you have a particularly great experience with a coworker or with an advisor, what did you do to make that great? Like, how are you as a person having good experiences and bad experiences? Because we can't have all good all the time, or else we won't necessarily learn anything from that. And then something that my colleague in admissions always tells our students is to own your anxiety and your nervousness during an interview. So you're not going to get rid of it completely, but it's been there all along and you've been successful up until this point. So you can still be successful during this interview knowing that. So don't be ashamed of it or worried about it. You have been completely succeeding at everything you've done so far. So you don't have any reason to think you won't be successful moving forward. So just keep rolling with it and be proud of the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I would like to add a little snippet on that as well. It's just, I love interviewing students who really have done their homework about pharmacy, about what's happening in the world of pharmacy, what's new, what's going to be happening related to in your state or whatever school you're, whatever state you're applying to, and the schools that you're applying to. It's just reading about the profession itself and having a conversation about the profession outside of just going through your interview. I think that always impresses me when students go above and beyond and do that.
We've gotten some really good questions about salary ranges, because that is something that you have to consider if this career aligns with your chosen lifestyle. So I know that the last time I checked the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, I think 2021, the average salary was about $120,000 a year, somewhere around there. I'm not going to ask you to disclose your salary, but I do want to see if you have any advice on additional certifications or other things that you can get as a pharmacist to kind of help bump you up in that pay grade, if that's what you're looking to do.
I was actually just at the American Pharmacists Association conference that we just had in Phoenix, Arizona, and a lot of people were talking about pharmacy and profession salaries and things like that. And I think we are seeing more of a shortage of pharmacists, specifically in like more rural areas. So if you're willing to work in a more rural area, not in the big city per se, a lot of students are getting signing bonuses, and that's something we haven't seen in quite some time. I'm hearing of signing bonuses of 50 to 70,000, depending upon what area that you would like, that you would be interested in going to, right? And realizing that a lot of times, we all come out of pharmacy school with some kind of debt, and realizing that if there's an opportunity for you to kind of get your feet wet in a smaller community, practice pharmacy, and if you're willing to do that and get that signing bonus and work for the company for a couple of years, then you can maybe transition to a bigger city or somewhere else that you would prefer to live in. But that is also another opportunity that I wanted to kind of share with everyone as well.
I was at that conference too, Susan. I wish I would have known. I would have looked out for you, but I think in a leadership role or in an administrative role, or almost in every position that you'll have, there might be an opportunity to take on in a leadership role or an administrative role, or kind of go up the chain if that's something that you're looking for. And so with each of those kind of increased responsibilities, there will probably an increased amount of salary that you'd receive from that too. And then, like Dr. Wynn mentioned, there are lots of loans that you might come out of pharmacy school with, but there are also lots of opportunities to repay those loans. So, for example, I utilize the public service loan forgiveness plan. I work for a public college of pharmacy, and so I essentially get to pay a certain amount on my loans, and then a certain amount will be forgiven because of the service that I've provided. So that's a great thing to think about. And I know someone asked a question about military career opportunities in pharmacy. That's another great way. If you're already thinking about that, they have a lot of loan payback options. They might even pay for you to go to pharmacy school if you then provide a certain amount of service to the military after finishing school. So there's a lot of ways that if you're already interested in an area, that might be a good way to pay back some of those loans while you're working in a field you want to work in.
And just to add on, there are also lots of scholarship opportunities. Different pharmacy schools offer scholarship opportunities. We at ACP just opened the CVS Health Minority Scholarship for students as well. And I put the link in the chat there so you can find out more about eligibility requirements and application processes. We are in the last few minutes of this panel. It has gone by so quickly. There is one question that might be too big to tackle in 6 minutes, but I did want to bring it up. And so one person asked, how is diversity, equity, and inclusion being embraced in the pharmaceutical workplace?
So I can start that because that's exactly what my role is at Giant Eagle Pharmacy. I would say with any position and no matter what field you decide to go in, just make sure it aligns with your values. Look at the company that you are working for. If that is what is important to you, make sure that they have statements around that and action plans around that, and they talk about that. But you can also talk to the employees and team members of the company to actually see how they feel. We did incorporate that into the oath of a pharmacist now. So pharmacy as a whole is absolutely embracing that. And I think that you will see that, across the board, wherever you are working. We are one of the most accessible healthcare professionals. So it's very important to us to make sure that we are helping with healthcare equity and helping to provide services in places where maybe you're not able to see a physician right away. Or we can give you those point of care tests because there's not a lab nearby. So we absolutely help to increase access to healthcare and find different ways, like we talked about research, and some of the ways that we help with healthcare equity is through research. So I believe that it is being embraced and that we have a focus on that in pharmacy. Dr. Nguyen mentioned American Pharmacists Association, and you can go on their website and see some of the actions around inclusion, equity, and diversity. And really any pharmaceutical organization has a lot of statements, and they partner with each other on how to further that in pharmacy. And I'm not at a pharmacy school, but I work with a number of pharmacy schools, and they have that as priorities as well, to increase the diversity in pharmacy, but also make sure that they are providing an inclusive and equitable environment for their students and for the communities that they are serving too. So you can absolutely, when you're applying to school or working with schools of pharmacy, ask them about their initiatives around that space and get involved as students.
I think something that I do personally is so I'll have fourth year pharmacy students on rotation with me. So during your fourth year of pharmacy school, you'll be taking essentially chunks of your time to visit and learn and experience pharmacy in different settings. So since I practice in a clinic setting, I have my students join me in that setting. And so something that we'll talk about is our implicit biases. So how we see the world affect how we care for different patients. And so I'm about to pop a link in the chat, but Harvard University has done a lot of research around this, around implicit bias and our associations that we make between different beliefs that we have. And so I'll have my students take these, and I won't ask directly for their results, but we'll just kind of discuss, like, what do you think about, or were you surprised by whatever your result was? And so I feel like we can each individually kind of take small actions to incorporate that into our daily lives, into our practice as pharmacists, and then hopefully pass that along to the students that we're working with as well. I feel like that's something we never want to lose sight of. And that's why we provide this individualized patient care, because all of our patients are individuals. So we can't ever blindly make the same recommendations to all of our patients, because they have different social determinants of health, different things that go into who they are as a person. That's important for us to use to best provide care for that patient.
Thank you all so much. There are so many questions in the chat that we did not get to today, just because the time just flew by. But I just want to say thank you to our panelists for taking the time to talk with us today, and to everyone who attended here today. I'm quickly going to share my screen again for those of you who didn't catch it, because even though we were not able to answer all of your questions in this panel today, I encourage you to follow us at Pharm.D on our social media platforms, sign up for the newsletter, check out our website, because you will likely find answers to a lot of the questions that you had today there. So I encourage you to check those out for, to stay up to date on all things pharmacy. If you ever have any other questions that you don't see an answer to, you can always reach out to us as well on the Contact Us page on pharmacyforme.org. And definitely check out this recording. It'll be on the Health Professions Week YouTube and also on the Pharm.D YouTube afterwards. So if you came in a little bit late and you missed some of it, you can go back and watch that. Thank you all so much for attending, and I wish you a great rest of your week.
Thank you.